Hey, Madrina. Mother's Day is coming up, and I really wanted to do something special for my mom. Do you think you have any brunch ideas?
Hi, Pablo. Yes, I sure do. I've got some great ideas for you. Let's do a French toast casserole. Let's do some breakfast slaw. Let's do some mini maple pork chops. And let's do a ginger fruit salad. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
Okay, let's get started on the French toast casserole. One of the things that I really like to do when I am working on a big meal for a special occasion is get as much done ahead of time so that come mealtime, things aren't quite so hectic and crazy. And this brunch is a perfect example of that. First thing we're going to do is cube up some cream cheese and some bread. For the bread, you can use sourdough, you can use challah, you could use like a cinnamon swirl bread, whatever kind of bread that you like the best, and cut it up into 1/2 to 1 inch cubes. And that bread should weigh about 1 pound total. And we're going to get the bread and the cream cheese into the casserole dish. And get the batter started with some 1/2 and 1/2 and a whole mess of eggs, as well as some maple syrup, vanilla extract, and if you have it, go ahead and toss in some maple extract too, just to boost the flavor. Some powdered sugar, and whisk, 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 whisk. I like this kind of up and down whisk. It's easier on my shoulder, and some people with arthritis have an easier time with it. I'll put a link in the description below if that's something that you are interested in. Pour that batter over the top of your bread and cheese. You're going to press that down a little bit just to help the soaking process. Cover it in plastic wrap. Give it one more press just for luck. And get it into the fridge, and it's going to stay there overnight. We're going to get started on the fruit salad next. We're going to wash all of our fruit really well. And each of these fruits we need 1 cup of. So start by cutting the grapes in half. I know it's super fiddly, but if you've ever chased a whole grape around on your plate with a fork, you'll know why this is important. Next up, some purple grapes. I have no idea what these long purple grapes are all about. I ordered just some regular ones, and this is what arrived. They were super delicious. If anybody knows what this variety is called, please put it in the comments below. And mango, we're going to cut a cheek off of each side of the pit, score it, and turn it inside out, and it makes it really easy work of getting the chunks off of the skin. Don't forget to carve any extra flesh off of the seed, too. You can't cut all of the fruit off of the seed, but you can gnaw it off, so that's a nice little chef's treat. Next up are some kiwis. I find it easier to get the skin off with a spoon like that than peeling with a peeler. But you do you, boo. We're going to cut up a cup of kiwi chunks. And while we're at it, we're also going to cut some garnishes for later, where we don't cut them into chunks, we just slice them and cut them in half. And those will be important for tomorrow when we put the rest of it together. Next up is a blood orange. Man, did this thing make a mess. It looked like a CSI crime scene on my cutting board before too long. And if you don't want to deal with this mess, I would say just use a regular orange or a Cara orange instead. And here, just to make a fancier presentation, I am supreming the oranges there. And that is just cutting out the segments from between the membrane. Just makes a little bit nicer presentation and a better mouthfeel for the salad. Look at my hands. They're stained with the blood of oranges. Oh, look at that cutting board. I was able to get most of that stain off with baking soda. I'm going to do some star fruit. I'm cutting the garnish first with this because I thought those little stars would look pretty. And then I'm just going to cut the rest of those 2 star fruits into chunks. Those were like the biggest star fruits I've ever seen. Holy moly, they were huge, but super delicious. One thing that's nice about this recipe is that if you like pineapple, put some pineapple in there. If you don't like star fruit, leave the star fruit out. Make it your own. Make it whatever's seasonally available. Okay, you can make it how you want. Okay, now I'm going to do a regular orange, just for some contrast and color. And I'm supreming these as well. Get those oranges into the bowl and toss really well. Now we're going to start building the syrup for the fruit salad. Going to zest a lime, because as long as you're using the juice, you may as well use the zest. That's my philosophy. I've got some crystallized ginger too. Man, was that stuff expensive. Pablo, if you're interested in learning how to make it yourself, let me know. And all of you watchers out there, if you want to know, let me know in the comments below, and I will do a different video. Next up is the sugar, but as you can see, I used half of it Swerve, which is a sugar substitute made from sugar alcohol. Because Madrina got to watch her sugar, and that is a lot of sugar if you just use plain. Got everything into the pan. We're going to get that boiling. It's important that after you boil it and cook it for a couple minutes, you need to let it cool completely before you pour it over the fruit. Otherwise, you will have a cooked fruit salad, and that's not what we're going for today. Okay, once the syrup's cooled, pour it over the fruit. Now, I know what you're thinking. That is a lot of ginger lime syrup to go on the fruit, but it's okay. We're doing this on purpose because it's going to give us a bonus recipe to make, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Get your fruit salad wrapped up, get your garnishes wrapped up, and get everything into the fridge. Next, we're going to get the slaw started, get that fruit washed. Although you can buy a 12-ounce bag of coleslaw mix pre-shredded at the grocery store, I prefer to use Napa cabbage for this recipe. And I just shred it on this mandolin. I bought this mandolin for $19 at an Asian grocery store. But if you don't have one nearby you, I will put a link in the description below if you are interested. Otherwise, you can just do it with a knife. Be very, very, very careful when you're using one of these. They are extremely, extremely sharp. I know it looks like I'm shredding a million miles an hour, but I sped this up just so you didn't have to watch me do it in real time. So please be careful. Here I'm adding a few pinches of kosher salt to the cabbage, and I am massaging it in. This will help break down the cell walls of the cabbage and make it tender crisp and easier to digest. Next up, we're going to slice a pear and an apple. I like to use a red pear and a green apple, personally, but you use for whatever variety you have at hand or that you prefer. Now, what did I just say about being careful? Seriously, what the heck was I thinking about this carrot? I think in the future, what I would do instead of this dangerous maneuver would be to slice it by hand or shred it on a box grater or buy pre-shredded. But please don't do what I'm doing here, Pablo. It is not a good idea, and I don't know why I thought I should do it, especially when I was going to show it to the world. Do not do it this way. Please be more safe. Yes, I know that grater has a julienne attachment, but I hate it. I don't like the way it comes out. I think it doesn't do such a good job, at least on my model. But please, Pablo, whatever you do about the carrots, please do it safely. Thank you. Okay, we're going to start the dressing. And that little thing I threw in there is a ball whisk, which helped bring all the ingredients together. I really like using it for things like dressing. And it also does a really good job for drinks. Put a little bit of brown sugar in there, some black pepper, some poppy seeds. I used 2 teaspoons there. That was way too much. I suggest that you only use 1. apple cider vinegar, because that makes everything better. Shake, 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 shake. And pour over. And give it a toss. Wrap it up. And get it into the fridge to do its thing overnight. I know what you're thinking. It's going to be soggy and whatnot tomorrow. No, it's not. It's going to be tender crisp. I swear. Do not worry. Okay, now it's the next morning. 2 hours before the brunch, get your oven preheated to 375. And about an hour and a half before brunch, pull the casserole out of the fridge. Be careful, it's still kind of liquidy in there. You might spill some. Ask me how I know, because I did it twice. Take the wrap off. An hour before brunch, get that casserole into the oven and set your timer for 45 minutes. While the casserole is cooking, let's finish up the fruit salad. We're going to take it out of the fridge. And the first thing we're going to do is try and remove most of that juice. I'm just using a turkey baster here and putting it into a little tiny pitcher that I happen to have. And we're going to reserve that for our secret bonus recipe coming up in just a minute. Let's get those garnishes on there. Just going to arrange the sliced kiwi and star fruit around the rim of that plate. You know what also would be really pretty on here? Would be like the little pips from inside a pomegranate, if you've got one of those. Or if you wanted to sprinkle on some unsweetened coconut, I think that would be delicious as well. You just be inventive and do it however you want. I realize not everybody has the same bowl as I do. We're going to decant that maple syrup just to be extra fancy. And 15 minutes before you want to serve brunch, let's get that casserole out of the oven. It needs to rest for a few minutes before we cut into it. And let's get those mini maple pork chops going. I'm just going to blot off the chops, get some oil into the pan and get it heated up. And get them seasoned up with salt, pepper, and cayenne. Going to add those seasoned side down. And blot the other side too before seasoning them on that side with the salt, pepper, and cayenne. Now these pork chops are super thin, so they won't take very long at all to cook up. And please don't overcook them. You don't want them to dry out. And depending on, you're just going to have to go use the force, Pablo, to know when the pork chops are done. You just really, because they're so thin, you just really want to brown them on both sides. And they should be finished pretty darn quick in just a couple of minutes. And if your pan is not large enough, like mine is not large enough, you might have to cook a couple of pork chops by themselves at the end. I'm going to add the butter to the pan, add the maple syrup and the bourbon, and give that a stir. I cut those pork chops in half off camera. Get them in, stir them around in the glaze for a little bit. Just get them all nicely coated and arrange them on your platter. And don't you dare forget that sauce that's still in the pan. You definitely want to spoon that over the top of the chops. Okay, let's get that slaw out of the fridge and served up. Give it a toss first. Some of that dressing will have sunk to the bottom, and you just want to get everything nice and mixed up into your bowl. Let's get the fruit salad served up too. Serve up a couple of those mini pork chops. Let's give the casserole a cut. I love how the cream cheese puffed up and browned just like a toasted marshmallow. Let's get that drizzled with some maple syrup. And let's mix up our bonus recipe here. We're going to fill a pitcher with ice and club soda or seltzer and mix in some of that leftover syrup. And it'll be like the best fruity ginger ale, fresh ginger ale that you've ever had. And then finally, mangiamo. Let's eat. It's brunch time. Okay, Pablo, we've done all 4 recipes for the brunch. The French toast casserole, the breakfast slaw, the ginger fruit compote, and the mini maple pork chops. Do you think your mom will enjoy this for Mother's Day?
I know she's going to enjoy it for Mother's Day.
Wonderful. Okay, I can't wait to see you for another project soon.
See ya. Thanks, Madrina.
Thanks so much, Pablo.